Alright, so let's continue with form. You can see after we got done talking about value, we jumped over to here. We added some three-dimensional look to our letters here, and I finished adding the values to help make it look even more three-dimensional. We're going to jump up to the top, and we're going to look at these shapes, which are two-dimensional right here. And remember, we reviewed shapes. We talked about them earlier, how they can be geometric or organic from nature. Well, here we have 4 more organic shapes, 5 total, but we got the triangles twice. Something that is two-dimensional has height and width. Okay, you can see this center line here adding, showing us the height. We can see how tall this square is. The width is how wide something is. If you jump over here, and we're now looking at three-dimensional, and the 3D, the third dimension, on top of height and width is depth. Depth is how deep something is, and it was what gives us the form that we're looking for. So if something is form, or if something is three-dimensional, it has form. So we can take a two-dimensional shape, like this circle, very flat, and we can redraw it here, and we can begin adding some shading to it. And we can pretend we are trying to create a sphere. A gumball sitting on the top of a table or a counter, maybe a kickball in the gymnasium. Okay, and of course we've all held one or seen one of those, any type of sphere, and we know that it is round. And so what we're doing here is we're creating the illusion, we're taking the circle, a two-dimensional shape, and we're adding these values to create what's called a highlighted area where the light actually comes and hits the surface. Now if we say this is maybe outside, here's my horizon line, okay? And let's pretend the sun is right here. This is our light source. The sun is now outside beating down onto this part of the surface of the kickball. Of course, as the kickball is round and starts to turn away from the sun, the backside of the kickball doesn't get the light, so it's in shadow. And then the sphere itself, the kickball, will place a shadow onto the concrete or the cement, just like if you were standing outside and you would see your shadow flat onto the cement. And now we've taken a two-dimensional object, okay, or a two-dimensional shape like the circle, and we've now transferred it into the three-dimensional world. Now this is still a drawing, it's still on thin paper, and we're just creating the illusion of depth. Now it has 3D, now it looks like it has form. Okay, we could do this with each one, and I might try, and I might move a little quicker so my shading might not be as neat. But we take our sphere and now we turn it into a cube. We can think of a box, okay? You could think of a Rubik's Cube, you know, those items that we turn with all the little smaller shapes of color. I've never figured that out. Okay, now we have a three-dimensional object that started with a square as one of its flat surfaces. And again, if we have a light bulb, or this is a box sitting on our front porch that somebody delivered, and if we have the sun shining here, one side of this box is not facing the sun, so it will be in shadow. And you can see how value here, this darker value of gray, helps us add even a little more form and 3D quality to our shape. And we could say the top is a little bit brighter because, okay, the sun is coming from above, hitting here. The sun can't wrap around this corner completely. And of course, on this side, the sun can't get to it. And then, of course, it casts a shadow and places a shadow flat onto the cement porch, walkway, wherever we might be. So I'm adding form to these shapes, which used to be two-dimensional, are now becoming 3D. And I'm using little tricks that artists use to create these 3D qualities. Now we could take this rectangle and we could turn it into a cylinder. a cylinder. It's a round object. You can think of a pop can. I have a Coke can right here. You can even see that Coke can is casting a shadow behind it onto the countertop. And you can see the right side of the Coke can has some bright white reflection areas. The red is a little brighter. And then on the left, okay, on the opposite side of where the light is coming from, that Coca-Cola is darker. So just there we see an example of a real life three-dimensional object that has form. That Coke can we can hold. We can wrap our hand around it. That means it has form. So there is something that actually has form, something we can hold, like a pop can, Pringles can, okay, like a box or a gumball, and we know it is 3D. And then we have these pieces of art like drawings or paintings that we want to create the illusion of form and depth and try to make it look real by either adding values like we are here or other qualities. So if we recap briefly with our two elements that we've been covering, value the lightness or darkness of a color, and form. Form is something we can actually hold, and we can see that it has a height, we can see that it has a width, but it also has this depth to it that moves back in space. Okay? And so we either have something like a sculpture or an object we actually hold with form, or we create a drawing that we try to create the illusion of form. So there are objects that are two-dimensional, these geometric shapes, and there are objects that are three-dimensional. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm sure we'll take a lot of these techniques and use them in the classroom, and we'll be moving on to other elements throughout our days.